Good morning. Thank you for coming. I understand that, or I realize that I'm standing between you and lunch. All right, so I may go a little faster than the allotted time. So, all right, 3 cups of code. So, my name is Vincent Mayers. I am a Java champion and open source project steering committee member, Java user group leader, and a conference organizer. However, I'm not a software engineer. Okay, I just play one on TV, and that'll become apparent later. So, the title of this talk comes from this book, 3 Cups of Tea, by Greg Mortensen and David Relin. And the backstory is Greg was a climber, a mountaineer, and he was climbing on K2 in the Himalayas, and he fell, he injured himself, and he was nursed back to health by this small village that found him. Villagers found him. And one day while he was recovering, he saw some children scratching in the dirt. He thought they were playing, but his host said, no, this is their school. They're doing their lessons by scratching in the dirt. And he was so heartbroken about this and so grateful to the village, he decided he wanted to build a school for these children in this village, and then realized that he had to build a bridge over the river to get the supplies to build the school. And this whole thing turned into a kind of global nonprofit for building schools specifically for girls in the high, Afghan mountains, or the mountains between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And and he did this in collaboration with the Taliban at the time. This was during all the conflicts then. And this book became required reading for Allied military commanders in the region because it gave such an insight into the psyche and the culture of the people. Now, Greg's kind of backstory has been a little bit discredited. The story of what happened is true, but he ended up defrauding donors and stuff like that. So, but for the purposes of this talk, in this book, there is a passage that says in Balti, in Pashtun culture, Balti is the village, Pashtun is the region, the first time you share tea with someone, you're a stranger. The second time you take tea, you're an honored guest. And the third time you have a cup of tea, you're family. Okay? So what I want to do here is talk about the importance of the number 3. All right? The number 3's power comes from cultural, mathematical, and psychological significance. Okay? Examples are in religion. In Christianity, you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In Buddhism, you have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In Hinduism, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Okay? Go to mythology. Norse mythology, Niflheim, Muspelheim, and Ginnungagap. And if anyone can pronounce those better than me, just keep it to yourself, right? In Greek culture, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades are the 3 main protagonists. And in Egyptian culture, Osiris, Isis, and Horus. You're getting the picture here. 3 is important. In literature, Aladdin had 3 wishes. There were 3 bears. There were 3 elven rings. This stuff permeates our culture more than you know. In science, observable matter is made up of a solid, a liquid, and a gas under stable conditions. Okay, if there's any physicists in the room, just keep your thoughts to yourself right now. In biology, 3 nucleotides determine the genetic code of anything. The perception of color relies on 3 types of cone cell in the retina. Short range, medium range, long range, red, green, blue, 3, 3, 3. All right, so I get 3 is important, but what has any of this got to do with community, you ask? Let's take a look at this quote again. The first time you share tea, you're a stranger. The second time you take tea, you're an honored guest. And the third time, you become family. So let's take a quick look at community, all right? Early communities around 10,000 BC, there were 3 major drivers in these primitive communities: shelter, food, and security. Move on a little bit to Neolithic. Agriculture, domestication of animals, and more stability were the 3 main drivers. Around the classical era, 500 BC, you start to see the rise of nation states, concepts of civic duty, and the inception of democracy. In the Han Dynasty in China, about the same time, you start to see global trade become important because of the development of the Silk Road for trading east to west, west to east. Technology and art. Technology, the first seismograph and wheelbarrow are attributed to the Han Dynasty. Also the inception of porcelain and paper. Medieval and early modern cultures, around 500 AD, about 1,000 years later. Medieval times, especially in Europe, you saw the rise of manorialism, okay? Manors, states within castles, governed by or owned by barons or earls. And they fought each other, feudalism, okay, for power and position. And all this was underpinned by religion at the time. Early modern cultures, around the time of the Industrial Revolution, okay, you saw the rise of nation states, mainly because of advances in transportation technology. People could travel further, which led to more capitalism. And also the increasing industry. Here's a quick what if, and I love this one. The Ming voyages, okay, around the 15th century in China, there was an Admiral Zheng He, okay, and Admiral Zheng He built these 140-meter ships, 140 meters, that traded from China to the east coast of Africa. Now, can you imagine what our culture and our world would look like today if these ships actually circumnavigated the world? Do you think they think there might be a bit more Chinese culture, Chinese influence in the world today? Contemporary societies around 1900s, you saw, again, due to advances in transportation technology, much more diversity and suburbanization. People now no longer needed to live where they worked. They could live further away from where they worked and travel, okay? You saw more people coming from other countries, again, because it was easier to get there. These days, okay, where we are now, we are mostly governed by online communities. The three main drivers of these are shared interests and communication, and the rules and norms that go along with these, all right? If you take a look back to these primitive societies, shelter, food, and security, and make a little bit of an intellectual leap, okay, to where we are today with online communities, I wonder if anything has changed in the last 10,000 years, or are we just this person with a laptop in a cave? I want to take a quick look at this one, security, rules and norms of how we govern our lives today, online especially. Inclusivity and codes of conduct are very important for us, but it's when you try to be inclusive, you can start to become selectively exclusive, okay? You see here, you had this kind of multi-abled, multicolored group of people or persons, and then all the greens got together. So this is just something that we need to watch out for when we're trying to be inclusive these days, that we don't become selectively exclusive. And there's a really nice, who remembers Peter Gabriel? Great, I don't feel so old and alone now. But there's a live album, very imaginatively titled Peter Gabriel Plays Live. And there's a song called Not One of Us on this. And when Peter is talking about this song, the intro to this song, he says, this is a song about groups of people that make themselves into smaller groups in order to feel strong, but excluding others. And I thought this was very apt in trying to describe what not to do when it comes down to inclusivity. We're all social animals, okay? We need interaction for cognitive function, for emotional support, for physical and mental health. And Gartner says that by 2024, this year, only 24% of meetings will be in person. Okay, who spends more than 24% of their time meeting in person? Anybody? More than 24%. Okay. And employees value purpose and their value more than anything else in the workplace. Whose first time at a conference? Is this their first time at a conference? Anybody? Or first time this year? Great, you guys are outliers. Veterans. Sometimes I do this, and there's a lot of people in the room where it's their first time at a conference ever. Again, human interaction is vital, and if your work environment doesn't provide this for you, you've got to seek it out for yourselves. Okay, how? Now, in the context of being nerds or geeks or whatever, engineers, there are three main ways available to us: conferences, tech groups, and then your team. Okay? When you go to a conference, what do you want to do? Or what can you get out of it? Learning, the social element, and motivation. Being here at an event, okay, being at a conference, you should have a singular focus because you're not at home. You're not in your work environment. Who checks their email when they're here? Work email. I try not to do it. We all do it. I do it. Okay, let's try not to. Try and live in the moment, okay, and have this singular focus. Gain new skills and new insights into things. The social element is vital at these things. It's a lot of the talks that you see at events, this and others, you can get these online. If it's not the same speaker, it might be the same subject matter, okay? What you cannot get is this, all right? The networking, the collaboration, the relationships you build. Who's heard of the hallway track, the hallway track? Anyone understand the concept of the hallway track? So for those of you that are not familiar, we have several tracks here at OCX. There's this one, the Java one, there's the automotive one, and there's what's going on in the main building. Different tracks, different things. The hallway track are the conversations that you have between the sessions, over lunch, over coffee with someone that you just met, okay? Just chatting away, and because we're all nerdy engineers, or except for me, I just play one. Your real-world use case of what you're working on is going to come up in conversation. It always does. And the person that you're speaking to may have a perspective on this. They may not have solved it, but they may have a perspective on this that totally changes the way that you think about it, okay? And then when you go back to work, that is more valuable to you than any of the other talks you went to. Okay, you cannot get this online. The motivation, there's a reason that we all got into this, okay? There's a reason that artists work in communes when they can, because they feed off each other's creative energy. Okay, it's the same with engineers. It's the same kind of thought process where, hey, I'm going to geek out with someone. I want to talk to them. I want to find out how they do things. I want to find out how they think. Coming to conferences like this reignites this. Okay, it's easy to lose this in your work environment, day-to-day testing this, code that, whatever, debug whatever. Easy to lose sight of why you enjoy this. All right, tech groups. So is everyone familiar with meetup.com? Okay. There are over 1,300 Java ecosystem-related groups on Meetup. Okay. Whichever town that you are in, unless it's a really small there is most likely a Java users group. If there isn't a Java users group, there's going to be something else, some other kind of tech group. Could be about DevOps, JavaScript, front end, whatever, accessibility. It doesn't matter. There's something that you can go to every month if you live in a kind of larger city. Anyway, for Java, in over 470 cities in over 80 countries in the world, there are over 230 listed JUGs, Java user groups, in over 200 cities and over 60 countries in the world. Okay? These things are out there. And there's hackathons. Okay? Who's been to a hackathon? Anybody? For those of you who haven't, I encourage you to do so. It's a great way to learn and challenge yourself, all right? This one here is called 48 in 48 in my hometown of Atlanta, USA. I'm not from Atlanta, USA. I live there. I'm from London originally. But 48 in 48, their goal is to build 48 websites for 48 nonprofits in 48 hours. And they take over a facility, and people come in with cots and blankets and stuff, and they have food brought in. And a lot of these websites are templatized, okay? But they have all kinds of people there. Back-end engineers, front-end engineers, product folks, designers. And they all get together to work on these sites. Now, you might say to yourself, well, I'm a back-end software engineer. Why would I want to do that? You know what? It doesn't matter if you are proficient in any kind of JavaScript framework. All right? You will have perspectives on stuff. You'll be able to contribute because you have unique perspectives, okay? Go to hackathons. Actually, challenge yourselves to go to hackathons, to things you've never done before, all right? It's like going to conference talks for things that you never see, that's not part of your core stack, all right? If you're ever at an event or a conference and the room is packed and you can't get into your Spring Boot talk, go to one on accessibility. Okay, go to one on Python. That might not be in your stack, but you will learn something. You'll learn to think in different ways. All right, now with your team, okay, who here works fully remote? Okay, what about hybrid? And then back in the office, 100%? So a mixture of everybody. There are things that you can do with your team, okay? Off-site events. Now, if you're working fully remote and it's a little bit more challenging, okay? But if you live in a large enough city, there's going to be somebody that works, or there could be somebody that works for your company in your city, and there's ways to find that out internally, all right? Take them to lunch, meet them for a coffee. This is especially easy if you're back in the office or hybrid. Do this stuff with your team, okay? Lunch meetings, drinks. Lunch and learns. Bring in an external speaker from the community, okay? There's a list of, for example, Java champions that's out there and where they live in the world. You can find this list. Java champions are open to traveling and meeting you at your office to talk about anything. They're usually pretty friendly. And you just reach out to them. Reach out to experts. Go to LinkedIn, find an expert in your town on whatever, have them come in and talk to you. Bring in a vendor. As much as you think you know the tool that you're using, you don't know it as well as the sales engineers or solutions engineers at that company. Bring them in to talk to you over lunch. And then there's you, okay? Your boss isn't going to do this for you. None of this will happen unless you take personal responsibility for it. None of it, okay? And none of this is possible without consistency. Who understands the term eventual consistency? Okay, so here's a definition of it by CiliaDB. An update will be reflected. It all knows that store the data, resulting in the same response every time data is queried. Okay, and there's really interesting diagrams, stuff like this. Node this here, node 1, node 2, node 3, boring. I like this one a little better. All right, I'm going to look at it because I know it's hard to focus right now, but we should try and finish testing the database. Yeah, okay. The system needs to guarantee eventual consistency. I mean, it does, right? Eventual consistency is guaranteed by the second law of thermodynamics. Sooner or later, this will all be a uniform heat bath. Maximum entropy. Maximum entropy means no useful work can be done. I'm getting a head start on that right now. The problem I have with these two diagrams are, will eventually, and sooner or later. You have to have intentional consistency to accomplish any of the things that we've been talking about, okay? And the thing about intentional consistency is it's really, really hard, all right? But none of it happens unless you take personal responsibility for it. So here are some examples, okay? Athletics. Everyone understands athletes need, for their conditioning, for their technique, for their kind of, their mental strength. You've got to be extremely focused and extremely intentional about it, okay? With work. This is when Quarkus came out, I think it was 2019. Was it 2019 or 2017? I always forget. Anyway, 19. So Burr Sutter from Red Hat came to do a talk at our Java user group on Quarkus. And about 4 months later, there was a lady that had attended the JUG meeting. I met her, and she just changed jobs. And she shared that she was at an interview, and Quarkus was not part of the required tech stack. But the interviewer asked her if she knew anything about it. Maybe they were thinking of moving in that direction. And she said, I haven't used it before, but I was at a JUG meeting, Java user group meeting, a few months ago, and they talked about Quarkus. Speeds up Java. It does this, it does that. It's really interesting. And then she shared that the hiring manager told her that comment, it was that comment that was the differentiator that got her hired. That was the differentiator between this lady and the next candidate. Not the fact that she was an expert, but the fact that she had a perspective on this technology. And kids, who has kids here? Okay. Being intentional with children is extremely, extremely hard. Okay, the support's given, but creating the habits and the boundaries, it's extremely, extremely hard. All right. So remember this guy? I'm not a software engineer. I just play one on TV. I spent 4 years at art school. All right. I've got a degree in pottery. This is what I did at art school for 4 years. Why am I here? I was this athlete. Okay. When was this? Oh, 93. There we go. So I intrinsically understand the level of intentionality you need to have to become successful in a sport. Okay? This was at the 93 World Championships in Italy. With work, I was a tech recruiter for almost 20 years. Who's dealt with recruiters? It can be painful, right? I realized a long time ago when I was in London that the importance of understanding a tech stack. All right. I remember around about 97, Java just started, but the enterprise tech stack that de jure in banking, which is the vertical I was in, was C++ on Sybase databases with Power Builder front ends. All right, a whole bunch of messaging in there too. And I was at a meeting with some client, and I was trying to pitch his business. Oh, we can provide these engineers. They know Sybase, they know C++. They know Corber. And he said, stop. What's Corber? And I was like, well, it's Common Object Request Broker Architecture. And the tool that everyone uses right now is Orbix by Iona out of Dublin. He was like, whoa, you can help me find people. But I realized very early on that it was important to understand what a tech stack was in order for me to be a better recruiter. And then when I moved to the US, around 2004, I started to sponsor the Java user group. I was a recruiter then. And J2E had just come out, and we had a lot of requirements for this. And I wanted to meet people in the community. I wanted to understand more about this stack. So I started to sponsor the Java user group and go every month. And after about 4 years or so, 5 years, the gentleman that was leading the Java user group left to go to another city, and he asked me to join the board because I'm a business guy. And then all of a sudden, I'm running the Java user group, and I'm running the Dev Nexus conference that we have in Atlanta. I'd never done this before. How do you run a conference? Oh, you need a venue, you need sponsors, you need speakers. And then because I ran this conference, I started to go to other conferences in the US, in Europe, to find out how other people did things, to make my conference a little better. And I got to know all the speakers that come to these things. And then I got invited to be voted to be a Java champion, a non-technical person with a degree in pottery. Why? Because I have a vested interest in the community. But none of this would have happened unless I was intentional about wanting to be involved in these communities and consistent. And then kids, these are my two. And I love them to death, but it's so hard to be intentional with children. It is so damn hard, okay? But what has anything this got to do with cups of tea? All right, let's look at this again, and I'll share a scenario. So, oops. Blah, blah, blah already. Thank you. The first time you share tea, you're a stranger. The second time you take tea, you're an honored guest. And the third time you become family. All right? Here's the bakery scenario. 100 years ago or so, I was in New York City. And I was staying in this youth hostel and with a girlfriend. And we had no money because we'd been traveling for a while. And there was a bakery underneath the hostel. So the first morning we go in there and I'd like a cup of coffee, please. Oh, hello, come in, have your cup of coffee. There are cat pictures in this presentation, just in case you were wondering. I squeezed them in. The next morning we went in there. Oh, hello, nice to see you again. Come on in. What can we get for you? The third morning, oh, my friend, nice to see you again. We made fresh baklava. Come on in, it's great to see you. Have coffee with us. If you think about this in the context of your interactions with people, when you're in an environment doing something that you're all passionate about, or just meeting people generally, okay? The first interaction is usually, hello, The second interaction, a handshake. The third, a hug. Okay, think about it. Think about it in other areas of your life where you go somewhere, you're doing things, it could be a chess club, a book club, whatever it is. Whatever else it is you're passionate other than software. It usually goes this way. A hi, a handshake, and a hug. Your relationship with people diametrically changes after or for the third occasion. Now, this can't all happen in one day. It has to be over a period of time, all right? What do I get out of community? Okay, it's a sense of belonging, a sense of collaboration, a sense of giving back. I'm actually very bad at getting gifts. Like Christmas time, oh, here's a gift or a birthday. I'm like, oh, I don't really know what to do. But I love to give. I get more pleasure out of giving a gift than receiving one. What are some of the takeaways here? None of this happens by accident, okay? It has to come from you. You've got to be intentional about this. This is Hannes Einer. He's a German kayaker. He won the Olympic gold medal in Tokyo, okay, in, was it 2020? But this is what it takes, okay? This level of intentionality. This is ice. This is in Augsburg, by the way, seeing as we're in Germany, and on the ice canal. And there's got to be joy, all right? There's a reason why we all got into this to start with. All right, we've got to remember the joy of Hello World, whatever it was, okay, that sparked your interest in being some kind of software engineer. So, 3 cups of code, or is it something else? That's it. Please connect. I'm very, very bad at Twitter. Okay, you can connect with me on Twitter, but don't expect. This is my LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you. Thank you very much for coming. I'm happy to answer questions, or don't feel bad if you just have to leave. It's fine.
Have you seen this play out in your Atlanta Java user group, where people come in and take that first step and then end up being really a big part of the community?
I have. I've seen it several times. So we've started recently to do kind of speaker coaching. I'll repeat the question in case it was on the mic. So the question was, have I seen this play out in our Atlanta Java user group where people have come in and been involved in the community, or had greater visibility by being involved in the community? So the answer is yes. We recently started doing speaker trainings, coachings, how to prepare an abstract, what the title should be. These are two important things. And then how to present, and encourage our members to do lightning talks at the start of our main meeting, which we have every month. They can do like a 5 to 10 minute lightning talk. But what I have seen is people that have given their first presentation at our Java user group, or at one of the web meetups that we run, and then gone on to present at one of the conferences that we run, and then gone on to keynote at that conference, and then 2 or 3 years later, they're invited to keynote internationally. I've seen it happen, but it only happens if that individual is intentional about wanting to do this kind of stuff. They can't just do it once and just forget about it. They've got to be intentional about it. Anyone else? No. All right, well, lunchtime. Thanks, everybody.